pase, pierna derecha, directo al arco, ¡golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane Rollins and Kevin Laramie, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today for Tuesday, April 5th, 2022. I'm Kev Laramie, joined by Duane Rollins, back on video with you today as we break down the Champions League quarterfinals. Duane will also talk about Alfonso Davies being named CONCACAF Player of the Year. We'll also touch on the World Cup draw once again, this time with a European perspective, because Duane, you know what? Today is Tuesday, and Tuesdays are for Europe. A little bit of music, European music. Duane and I like our little house music to talk about European football today on Soccer Today as we look at the World Cup draw with a European perspective. Before we talk about the Champions League, Duane, I'll let you ruminate a bit more on Man City's chances to progress and to do well in the first league. Let's look at the World Cup draw from a European perspective. I love that aspect. Let's look at Qatar 2022 with the European group. And it's Tuesday, Duane, and yesterday also, Louis van Gaal, who's the manager of the Netherlands, announced that he's battling prostate cancer. Netherlands are in Group A. They're in the spot A4, and they are a team that is expected to actually surprise. What do you think of the Netherlands as a strong European team in this World Cup draw?
Yeah. First off, obviously, have cancer and all that with Louis van Gaal. That's not great news. But the Dutch, I think, have to be very happy with this draw. When you look at the overall power, anyone who drew Qatar was going to probably be declared to have the weakest group. Their main competitor there, you have an Ecuadorian team in South America, which is kind of a team you wouldn't expect to normally be there. And Senegal, which is, I think, only its second World Cup. They have a lot of talent, obviously top end, but in terms of what your expectations are, you would look at this group, and if you're the Dutch, you go, yeah, we're going through on that. And then, you look at perhaps your second place finisher in the group beside you, and you think we have a pretty easy path to the quarterfinals, so they have to be pretty happy. Yeah,
and when we look at the Netherlands too, we'll see if they can answer the generational question. Oh, this is supposed to be a good generation, the famous golden generation. We'll see if they can answer that label with the Memphis Depay and all. To me, if we go back to the World Cup draw, in Group B, we do have England and the possibility of having Scotland, Wales, or Ukraine. And of course, Scotland, injury with one of their top player. We'll see if Ramsey can be back in time. Knee injury. But Wales, Ukraine, what is your thought on this group with two European team, England being touted as the favorite to win this group?
Yeah, I mean, look, how strong this group is depends on how strong you think the U.S. is. And we have a lot of American listeners, of course, so we're not going to dismiss the possibility that people overlook the United States, because certainly that's the case. I feel much the same way about USMNT as I feel about MLS. It's simultaneously over and underrated, right? Like, it depends on who you're talking to. I do think some people that are like, great, we got England, this is great, we're going to surprise them, are a little bit overstating it too. The English are very strong. They're the European runners up. They made the semifinals of the last World Cup. Yeah, I know the jokes. Yeah, I know, 1966. I get it, but I mean, that has as much to do with now as, I don't know, as Pele strength for Brazil. Like, it does nothing to do with how good they are now, how badly they've done in the past. So what I would say this, when you're looking at England, they absolutely should be the favorite. They absolutely have to feel they can get out of this. And as I said, how strong you think the U.S. is depends on how strong this group is. Rankings-wise, interestingly, if you add the rankings up and average them out, this is the hardest group. Now, everyone would look at that and kind of go, what? And that's because the U.S. is ranked, 11th or something? So that's overstated. Like, they're not the 11th best team in the world. I'm sorry, they're not. They finished third in CONCACAF. They lost 5 of 6 points to Canada. They're not the 11th best team in the world. They're just not.
No, the rankings.
Unless you want to think Canada's better, because right now,
it's true.
Numbers
say that. It's true, but that will be a fascinating time in Group B. Continuing to have a look at Qatar 2022 through a European lens. And in Group C, we have Poland, who had to work hard and qualify through the playoffs, but with a wonder striker who might be playing in his last World Cup. We never know. Robert Lewandowski could be on his way out of Bayern Munich this summer also, which could lead to, will he be coming into this tournament with the same type of form we've seen Lewandowski had at the Euro last summer? What is your thought on Poland's chances to come out of Group C? Poland is with Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland out of Group C. So Poland, what is your top chances in your mind?
I mean, look, he's the best striker in the world. He's the best goal scorer in the world. There's no doubt about this. He's proven it over the course of 18 months now that he has, replaced Messi as the best pure goal scorer in the game. However, goal scorers need service, and that's going to be the question. Can he get it with Poland? Can he get it in this group? You'd think Saudi Arabia is your clear fourth-place team. Argentina is your clear first-place team. So really it comes down whether they can beat Mexico, if they're going to nick that second place. Obviously, we're going chalk when we're talking about this. But yeah, look, Poland is a weird team to handicap. I have struggled to place them in the last couple international tournaments they've been in. They have not done as well as I thought they have, and I think that's us overstating club form for Lewandowski, who is playing for one of the best club teams in the world, if not the best club team in the world. Which,
by the way, means for the layman that he's surrounded with top players at each position, which inherently makes him better.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be Canadian for a second here. He's got Alfonso Davies when he's healthy on his left wing, overlapping with other superstars on the left as well, which is drawing the ball away, which opens up space for him in the middle, which gives him a half second, a quarter second more, which at a world-class level is all you need to turn a goal every 3 games into hat tricks at will. It seems lately sometimes. We'll see how he does in the Champions League going up, but certainly that last Champions League had 20-minute hat trick that he got. So Austrian team, but nonetheless. So,
yes, exactly. But it is fascinating too, because in that group, it all depends what Messi, and of course, when we think of Messi, we do kind of think of Messi as a European player, right? Just because, he's with Barcelona forever, and now with PSG in France. So we kind of look at Messi as a European player. I do. I'll be honest. I do. And I'm like, oh, no, wait, he's for Argentina. And Argentina's not in Europe, right? It's not. I know my geography. I was watching To Carmen Sandiego back in the day on TV. Yeah. And where is Carmen Sandiego? That's always a good question.
In the 90s. She's in the 1990s.
She's in the 90s. So that's where Carmen Sandiego is. Yeah. In the 1990s. We're also, the last time Argentina was really, really good at the World Cup, I guess.
2010 made the final, but
it's true.
2014.
I forget that they make the final in 2014. Yeah. But let's continue now with our Qatar breakdown with the European lens. I do like Group D. We will have France and Denmark. Denmark is not to be taken lightly, with, of course, the newest generation and Christian Eriksen back being exactly what he was a couple years ago before dying on the pitch last summer and being revived. Of course, that was quite a scary moment. But to me, this group could be interesting because we could have 2 European teams coming out of this one. I do fancy France to win this, and I do also fancy Denmark to come out of this group. 1, 2, France, Denmark. What do you say, Duane?
On Peru, but you're right in terms of Denmark. And Tunisia is a solid defensive team that is going to present challenges for anyone, but they are, I think, the 4th-ranked team here. I think Peru will likely get through from the 3 there, although Costa Rica, we've talked a lot about them, but they don't get that home advantage in the playoffs, so that's going to make it more challenging for them. Look, Denmark is, I think, a fair shout for your dark horse pick to win the tournament. And I said win purposely there because they're a top-ranked team with some stars that have played together, have been successful of recent times, have a narrative behind them that's going to be a feel-good thing. Everyone's going to be behind that team in this World Cup, assuming Eriksen makes the roster, which you would assume he would, based on his form so far.
Well, based also that he has played in the last international window for Denmark and scored a goal, so there's also that too.
Yeah, exactly. So look, it's going to be, they're going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be a team everyone's looking at. And then, of course, this is all the talk we're having right now is without even mentioning the fact that the world champions are in the group. France is a pretty damn good team that has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And on paper, especially with Italy out, they're definitely on paper, I think, the favorite to win the whole tournament. But we all know what France's issue is.
They also have to make amends from last year's Euro. And I think that's where France become dangerous, is now they have something to prove. And I think because they won the World Cup in 2018 and that they lost badly in the Euro against Switzerland in the round of 16, I do believe that for France, they will come with a no white glove approach. They're not going to try to make everybody happy. And I think that's going to be the difference. This might be the last tournament Didier Deschamps manages the French national team. And I think it will be not only a young generation type of team, but it's not going to be just glitz and glamour. You're not going to find ways to fit Benzema all the way to Mbappe and all the superstars and the big egos. It's not going to be that. It's going to be back to a workhorse mentality and building a team. We forget that that's what is actually successful in these type of tournaments. Players that know each other, that are complementary to each other, and they're playing at their own position, not necessarily playing out of position just to get the talent on the pitch. I do believe there's something to be said of having a club mentality at a national team level when it comes to tactics and the choice of your players to fit those tactics that will actually give you what you expect. That's what you want, not necessarily surprising performances that are outperforming your expectations, because that's not replicable. You want to know what you're in for so that you can manage accordingly.
Yeah, look, this has been a topic of conversation on a few of the shows that I've been listening to since the draw, particularly as it relates to England. And, you know, Southgate's kind of choices there. And it relates to France, too. So I'm not just trying to pull England into the conversation. You have to sort of think of it like a club team. You have to stop thinking about these teams as all-star teams because that doesn't always work. It can work if you are a smaller nation and you've got to pick your best players. Like, I mean, you know, Canada has a lot of attacking forwards. They had to build the team around that rather than trying to build out and make choices. Like, you have to get your most talent in there when you only have the depth of 35 or so, right? And maybe I'm even being generous with that 35. But when your depth is 150, as France's really truly is, you could choose to make picks and you can have addition by subtraction, which is a key component to when you're handicapping France this summer, because we looked at them last summer, or this fall, I should say. When we looked at them last summer at the Euros, they really self-destructed, and they have to address that. And if they can address that, the talent is so high that they absolutely should be considered the favorite, not in this group, but in the whole damn tournament, right?
Oh, definitely. And that's where France becomes a very an opponent you don't want to see, because yes, you might bring him to extra time and get lucky, but I don't think we're going to see that again with this group of players, because I do think we're going to have a different approach. Now let's talk about Group E: Spain, Costa Rica, New Zealand, Germany, Japan. The European lens here is Spain and Germany. Two teams at a different end of the spectrum. To me, Germany is, yes, starting a new cycle with Hansi Flick. And when we think about Germany, we think now of a team that's going to maybe play the way Bayern Munich was playing about 12 months ago going forward. But there will be a turnover of players, and the expectations are not here. It's very early in the German project. Spain, on the other hand, is turning itself around. Surprised a lot of people in the Euro last summer. Have young jumpstart type of players like Pedri that played 500 games since last summer, Duane. He played more than one game a day almost in an average. It's crazy the amount of games this player played. From the U20 World Cup to the Euro before, whatever. It was crazy last summer. And of course, the league right now. Spain goes to... That's where there's some expectations for this young Spain team that will have a couple of the veterans still with them for one last shot at World Cup glory. What do you think about Spain in this group? And am I wrong thinking Germany is maybe going to disappoint their fans a little bit?
Well, I mean, Germany's a weird one to handicap because they had such a disappointing World Cup last time, or Euro as well. They haven't done well in the last two major tournaments. We're used to having Germany be an automatic. They, of course, famously didn't make it out of the group in Russia. They were eliminated by England. Oh my heavens, they were eliminated by England at the Euro. That doesn't happen, right? So you don't know where Germany is. That said, you look at the way they qualified, and they seem to be coming back around, but this is the beginning of a new generation, I think. Spain is, you can't call Spain or Germany a dark horse because they're Spain and Germany. They're both our world champions in the past. Spain has been the dominant force in Spanish football, and Spanish tactics have been the dominant force for the last 20 years in the football game. You can't call them dark horses yet. In both cases, they aren't really considered tier one favorites in this tournament. What they are considered tier one favorites are of having the best game in the group stage. This is the one that everyone pulls out, which means if you could make a real long future bet on 0-0 between Spain and Germany in the group stages, I'd put that down now because it always always manages to disappoint the game everyone circles.
That's also Spain's MO, right? When you think Spain's going to bring the fireworks, you're like, oh, wait, it's Spain. They're going to pass the ball around, and it's going to be 90 minutes of pure bliss of watching the ball go between one player with the red jersey and another player with the red jersey.
Triangles.
And you know what? Pythagoras is going to be happy in that game.
Look, well, think about what Spain did at the Euro. They were like, everyone was like, oh, Spain's done because they drew 0-0 against, I forget who, but it was like their first game. And then they went and won 5-0 in their next game. And then it was like that the whole tournament. And they ended up going out, they won the semis, I think, right? So they were an enigma even then. They're still an enigma, but they're still a damn good team. And, Japan has never done particularly well in a World Cup. Even their host World Cup, they didn't go deep. Korea was the team that surprised there. They've got a playoff team coming in here. Like, this is a group that's really set up. It's not a group of death because there's two favorites, and then there's Japan, and then there's whatever the playoff team is. It should be an easy out for both of them, which is why I think that game's destined for a tie between the two, because if they're both through or they both feel that they can get the other 6 points, then they're not going to risk a loss there, right? This is a good draw for both of them in the sense that they play each other early, and which means they avoid each other in the next round. And I would guess when they look at the crossover too, which you have to, with all due respect to us and our group and Belgium, they're probably really happy with that they will go through that group next, because that, to me, to those two teams, they'll look at that and go quarterfinals or bust is what they'll say.
Quarterfinals or bust. Yeah, that could be a good idea for Spain, and we'll see, because quarterfinals could be is it Canada on that side of the draw?
They would play, the winner of that group would play the second place in Canada's group. So there's a potential for Canada to play one of those if they were to get through. Or Croatia if you want to go chalk.
Oh, but we're getting there. We're talking about Croatia right now, Duane, because that's my narrative right now. Belgium, Canada, Morocco, Croatia. The European perspective in Group F is Belgium and Croatia. Belgium, second best team in the world behind Brazil. And Belgium choking in the big tournament. Will that be the narrative for the Belgium national team? Will Roberto Martinez make the Belgium proud? Or will Belgium stumble in their first game against Canada on November 23rd? That's the question. Morocco, interesting intangible in this round. Croatia, the old leg of Croatia, will not be able to keep up with the Alfonso Davies, with the young Moroccans, and win the best players in the world in Belgium with Kevin De Bruyne, who's gonna show Luka Modric straight to retirement in November. Croatia is going to struggle, and I think Belgium will top the group, and I think the European perspective here is Canada was founded by European settlers, multiple places, and yes, it's Tuesday, it's Europe, and Canada is going to finish second in the group.
I'm wearing the t-shirt in case you see it, old school t-shirt. Got it off eBay, by the way. You can just Google it there. I know a lot of people are asking.
Also, you can just print something that you can print and iron on a shirt and make it, but that one looks great.
Yeah, it's the 86 logo for those listening on podcasts that I have on that t-shirt. I'm not going to talk about Canada here because we're going to talk about Alfonso Davies briefly after this anyway, so we'll get a chance there. The European narrative in this is A, whether Belgium can put it all together and win a title with this golden generation, and erase this idea that they're big tournament chokers, which is not entirely fair because they finished third in the last World Cup, and that's not a choke, I don't think, finishing third in a 32 team tournament, but it certainly wasn't.
No, you're right, but if you're expected to win, is what you're right, but were the expectations ever realistic? That's also like, it's never realistic to be like, oh, you win or it's a disappointment.
Well, in many ways, Belgium is Canada on steroids. they have a lot of attacking talent and they have a lot of questions at the back. Now, Canada answered those questions in qualifying. Can they answer them at a higher level? That's what we're going to have. That's going to be a narrative in the fall, right?
Yes, and I'm going to make a little shameless plug here. If you're a French reader, in the next couple days, in the French daily newspaper of Casablanca in Morocco, called Le Matin, you can read an article that I wrote for them, and that talks about Canada's defensive, they allowed the least amount of goal in the entire CONCACAF during World Cup qualifying, only allowing 7 goals. They've also scored 35 goals in the 2021 calendar year, being the best international goal-scoring team in the entirety of FIFA, with 3 goals ahead of Germany. So you're looking at a team that does go to World Cup with a certain amount of confidence, and that's where Belgium will need to answer the same defensive questions. Can they give their offense a 1 or 2 goal buffer, meaning that if you get 1 or 2 goals, you're going to win the game? If Belgium keeps a clean sheet, they're going to be very hard to beat.
I'm going to say this quick before we move on. I was disappointed in this drawn away. I'm happy about it because I'm excited to watch these teams now that they're there, but I really like Belgium as a team. They're a fun team to watch. I was cheering for them in the last World Cup because Canada wasn't there. That was kind of the team I adopted. I would like to see this generation win. Part of that is my own bias from my club side because Kevin De Bruyne plays for that team, and he's one of my favorite players I've ever seen in the world. So I would love to see him be successful. But yeah, there's questions there. And as I said when I talked about the Spain-Germany group, whoever finishes second to those two teams is not going to be completely not unconfident playing in that glory final against likely Belgium, because I do think the Belgians should win the group. Let's be realistic here. Canada can challenge them. Morocco can challenge them. Croatia, never count the Croatians out. They play with a lot of heart and spirit. They're older now. They struggled in qualifying a little bit. They are not the team they were 4 years ago, but once those checkerboards go on their chest, they tend to step up, particularly in the World Cup. So I wouldn't discount any of this. It is, I think, a tough group. I could make an argument it's a group of death. Well, others won't, because they will discount Canada. They will discount Morocco as not being worthy of that title. But if you realistically look at these teams, I think that this one has a lot of intrigue, this group.
Yeah, it really does. And we'll see how we can get the best out of it. All right, let's continue now with our European look, and we're almost done, and we'll move to the CONCACAF. No. You see how it's ingrained in me? You can't take the Canadian soccer out of the Canadian guy. But Europe today. And after the break, we'll break down the Champions League from Europe, of course. Group G. Serbia, Switzerland. Will Switzerland continue their streak of making it to the quarterfinals? To the round of 16, and now quarterfinal. Yeah. And that's what they did this last time. But Switzerland, with one of their biggest stars not playing in the biggest league anymore. Let's address it. Xherdan Shaqiri is playing in Chicago. Chicago's good this year, but will that translate with Xherdan Shaqiri bringing Switzerland to a higher level than we anticipate? Switzerland, yes, is not a dark horse to win, but for sure a contender to make it to what I would call the semifinals for sure. What is your thought on Switzerland and also Serbia? Serbia could surprise here and come out of the group, but it depends. They'll be between those two teams, I think. Brazil, maybe the clear-cut favorite here, but what do you think, Duane?
Yeah, the Cameroon's not a solid Cameroon. This is not a good Cameroon side compared to historical Cameroonian sides. So look, I don't want to dismiss any team in the tournament. They've all made the World Cup, but it's not the best Cameroon side, as it's not the best Ghana side we'll talk about in a minute. In fact, the CAF teams that got through outside of Senegal were kind of a bit surprising in some cases. Morocco was favored too. But anyway, to get back to Europe here. Yeah, no, I think there's a clear 1-2 in this in Brazil and Switzerland. Switzerland's a solid team. We joke about round of 16. I think that, we would have killed to be historically making the round of 16 every tournament in this country. We're getting excited by making the round of 32, right? So that's, which is the group stage. So we're happy with that. So
we're just happy to be here. Like, hey, yeah, thanks for welcoming us. We're happy to be here. Oh, wait, we scored a goal. Oh, wait, we got to win. Thank you. We're good. Okay, thanks.
I can show up. I can wear moose heads,
Oh, the cliches. Oh, yeah. That's going to be quite a November.
People dressed up, cosplaying as the Mounties. I'm way looking forward to that. But anyway.
Somebody dressed as poutine, for sure. They're going to be serving poutine there somewhere. There's going to be a Tim
well,
Hortons. There's actually a couple of Tim Hortons in Doha. And those are going to be busy places on November 23rd.
Oh boy. I don't think I've had Tim Hortons in about 3 years, but sure. Maybe it went in Rome or went in Doha, as the case may be. Look, there's always a team that surprises too. And the Serbians were really good in qualifying. They qualified direct. We should remember that. So that's not completely dismissed. Any European team that makes the World Cup is a good team. And I don't know much about them. We didn't watch them a lot. We didn't expect them, but they qualified direct. And here they are. So they're going to be a force, and they're going to be hard to get by. It's Brazil's group to lose, That's for sure. And when you look at this bottom quadrant here, with Portugal not being at its top form either on the other side, Uruguay is kind of a little bit behind the days too. Bad Ghana side, Korea's Korea. They're maybe around a 16 quality. Brazil's looking pretty solid for a semifinal berth when you look at that.
Yeah, it's true.
Tuesdays are for South America in this particular 1 minute.
I guess Tuesdays are for whatever. Tuesdays are for
not MLS, but
Tuesdays are for everything but MLS. You mentioned Portugal. Let's just quickly finish on Portugal before we go to the break. We're already talking for a while here. So Portugal, of course, has qualified out of the playoffs of the UEFA. And we're seeing Portugal being, of course, a top seed, the 8th seeded team here in this tournament. Favorite to get out of Group H, but not necessarily favorite to go far. Brazil might be in Portugal's way down the road. What do you think of Portugal's chances to go on a run here at the World Cup level? Let's not forget the 2016 European champions.
Yeah, I think they've got a good draw, is what I'll say. Again, I mentioned Ghana a couple times. Ghana is terrible. Like, they are the worst team in this World Cup. I'll say that outright. This is the weakest Ghanaian team I've ever seen in my life. I keep saying Ghanaian. I'm not sure if Ghanaian is the right plural of it, but regardless, team from Ghana. Uruguay, again, they struggled a little bit. They got there. They're still relying on older players in certain cases. Korea, I never quite know what to make. They've never done anything in a World Cup outside of that one 20 years ago now, which happened to be at home and happened to have some very, very suspicious referee calls go their way.
Very dodgy results of games, to be fair, Frank.
2 in a row against Italy and Spain. There's a great documentary. You can look it up on it's an audio documentary. You can find it. I'll try and get a link out on my Twitter feed later. You should be listening to it. It's very, very well done about the referee that was involved in that. It was from the last World Cup. I hope they do that series again because they were awesome shows, and I'll try and promote them if they do. But at any rate, the point I'm making with this is kind of an easy touch group. It does set up for potentially they'll cross over the other side, pardon me. So if they win the group, so they will avoid Brazil if they win the group. But it's not a bad little run. Like, they will feel favored against Switzerland or Serbia or Switzerland in a round of 16 matchup, which is their most likely opponents. And, provided Brazil doesn't slip up and make that derby, it should be a fairly easy touch for Portugal. But I just don't see that team beyond a quarterfinal. I don't see them as a top true contender. I put them, if I'm going to tier these, I put them more along with Belgium and the fact that you could see a pathway where they might win, but it doesn't seem likely that they would.
No, I have to tend to agree with you. And this was our European breakdown. I feel like there should be like a Price is Right wrapping up music. This was our look at the World Cup draw groups through a European perspective, because there's a lot of European teams at the World Cup, and that's basically usually your pool of contenders is mostly European teams too. So this was our look at the European teams in the World Cup. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll break down the Champions League quarterfinals that starts this afternoon, and tomorrow the first legs, and we'll also talk about Alfonso Davies winning another award, another first for the Canadian Wonderkin. That and more after this short break.
You are listening to Soccer Today. Follow us on Twitter at SoccerTodaySPN and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.
And we're back on Soccer Today. So is the Champions League. The Champions League back in our lives with the quarterfinals taking place later today and tomorrow. And Duane, let's break down the great games that will take place this afternoon. I know you're starting to be nervous. I know it's the first game at home. Atletico Madrid, Manchester City today at 3 p.m. Eastern. Also Benfica, Liverpool today at 3 p.m. Eastern. Duane, what do you think of the quarterfinals in the Champions League?
Look, I mean, there's two clear favorites in these two ties that we're talking about here today. Let's be honest here. I think both Liverpool and City have to be considered two of the three favorites to win the tournament at this point. With Chelsea struggles right now, I think it's fair to drop them back, even though they're the defending champions, to maybe not quite the same level they were a year ago at this point. Particularly coming off the results of a 4-1 loss on the weekend. We'll see whether that carries on, but nonetheless, this is a tricky tie for City. It is the team, if I can speak partisan for a second, that I did not want to draw most of all. And I say that with all honesty. I would have rather had a head-to-head with Bayern or Liverpool in these quarterfinal rounds, because at least then you're going head-to-head and there's no expectations. You don't have all the onus of controlling the game put on you. City has traditionally struggled at the quarterfinal level against teams that sit back. They did it against Lyon a couple years ago. They did it against Morocco a couple years ago. Teams that were weaker than Atletico Madrid in terms of their overall performance. So this is a tough matchup for them. They need to get a result today. It's interesting. Pep's trying to keep things light. I don't know if people heard the press conference yesterday. He's famously known for overthinking things in his press conference. So he did this long-winded, sarcastic, and the only way Pep could answer, but yes, sometimes I'm so dumb and just stupid results from here. Yeah, so anyway.
What I thought was funny is the tactics of Diego Simeone to go to gaslight Pep Guardiola, saying, you know what, Pep Guardiola in his career, if you look at the players he had across all the teams he managed, he was kind of lucky. Hey, he's a lucky manager. He's lucky to just be able to manage all these superstars. And then saying, of course, I'm not. I've managed teams in my old managing career that could never get that superstar striker, that could never get the biggest transfers in the window. We're lucky to get them now, and it's by happenstance. But yeah, we're not that lucky. So what do you think about Simeone branding Pep Guardiola a lucky manager?
Well, it's Diego Simeone, which, you know what, I can't hate him. He's the villain. He's like I used to cheer for the bad guys in wrestling.
He's the heel. He's the heel. He's Eric Bischoff. He's Sonny Ono. That's who he is. He's going to run his mouth. He's the manager. Literally, he's the heel manager. He's Paul Heyman talking about Brock Lesnar. Exactly. That's Simeone.
Well, the way he dresses, all in black. Like, it's to a T. Like, he's playing a role, and he plays it very well. In terms of, is Pep lucky? No. Pep is brilliant. He is. He's absolutely brilliant. Look at his record. Yes, he has a lot of talent behind him, but the reason he has a lot of talent behind him is because he's brilliant. It's a chicken-egg kind of situation. That said, Simeone does have a point. He has coached plumbers for most of his life, and he's coached them up to a remarkable level, found a way that wins for them. You think back to their back-to-back Champions League losses to Real Madrid. That's just one example that City was directly involved in. Do you think if they keep Kun Aguero, do you think they win one of those two games and win a Champions League? Maybe, right? Or other players too. Torres, there's lots of examples of guys that have gone. Costa, there's guys that have been there, done well, and had to move on, weren't there in their peak years.
That's true. Let's continue. Of course, tomorrow, Villarreal, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, Real Madrid. Chelsea-Madrid, that's a fascinating matchup. What type of Chelsea will show up? Will it be the Chelsea that wins or the Chelsea that loses to Christian Eriksen and Brentford? That's the question here. But Villarreal, Bayern Munich is a good way for us to talk about Bayern Munich. Their chances, of course, against Villarreal, they're the favorite here. They have to amend last year's what they call a disappointment, because you can listen to Alfonso Davies on the Bayern Munich account talking about his CONCACAF Player of the Year awards, and of course talking about this Champions League matchup, saying they need to make amends from last year. They were disappointed. The entire team was disappointed in the Champions League results. Talking about his CONCACAF Player of the Year award, he said, yes, it's a great time. It's great for him to win this award, but it's not just him. This award represents also the entire body of work of the team, and it's the award for a team also. He cannot be as good as he was in CONCACAF in 2021 if he wasn't surrounded by the best offense in CONCACAF in 2021, internationally even. So Alfonso Davies, Player of the Year in CONCACAF for 2021. 21, Duane.
Yeah, and that's a great accomplishment for him, and it won't be the last time he wins that award, I don't think. So that's
first of many.
Yeah, exactly. And Crystal Dunn won the women's side. We should mention that as well. But it's individual awards are fun to talk about. They're great for guys like us that talk about stuff and need to fill time for a half hour or hour every day, right? But nonetheless, he's right. It is about the team. If Alfonso Davies isn't winning Champions Leagues, if he's running up and down the wings playing for the Vancouver Whitecaps still, even if he's this good, he's not winning this award. So it has to do with where he is. The more important story on Alfonso Davies is he is scheduled to be back, available for selection again.
He is traveling to Villarreal. He's in the roster in today's press release.
Yes, exactly, for the game tomorrow. And that's what Canadians should hope for. And, normally I would say leave him off the Nations League roster, and we'll maybe talk about the Nations League draw down the line. Curacao and Honduras, doesn't matter. When it gets closer, we'll talk about it. But I kind of like the idea of having Alfonso Davies be part of that, just so that they could celebrate him a little bit, and then the rest of that roster be like Raheem Edwards and Tyler Fazer and guys that they need to look at to see.
Exactly, guys that you need to test, because you'll need the Ismail Kone. You'll need to have more out of these players before you pick them for your roster for the World Cup.
And the FIFA ranking doesn't mean a damn thing right now.
No. Well, no, because it's already done. You're right. It's about getting ready for
2 years to figure that out.
It's
with
about
the
getting
World Cup and World Cup qualifying and all of that.
And guess what? If you do well at the World Cup, that's going to take care of the FIFA rankings for you. You won't need to worry about it. That's going to by itself,
Just throw the kids out there and see what happens, right? That's all I want from the Nations League.
Exactly.
Anyway, we're talking about Bayern Munich. Look, they're the heavy favorite against Villarreal. Although you never sleep on the Spanish side, but they are the heavy favorites here, as are, we didn't talk about Benfica, Liverpool either because, well, why?
Well, yes, it's like Benfica. Thanks for your journey. Thanks for your great season in the Champions League. We wish you all the best in your continuation in your season in the Portuguese First Division. But good to see you. Now you can go home now.
Yeah, well, look, they've done very well to go to quarterfinals of the Champions League. That's a high water mark for them for a long time at this level. But I'm interested in Chelsea, Real Madrid for all those intrigue reasons as well. But I will be watching Bayern Munich tomorrow to see if Alfonso Davies gets on the pitch, because that is the story. I think it's even the story there a little bit, because obviously they look at him differently. He is one of 11 guys that is very, very, very good that they like to have. He's more of a gravy icing player for them, though, and they will be happy to see him back for the personal side of that story, because it's not quite as bad as Christian Eriksen got, but it's a similar idea. It's a heart issue. They were scared for him. Now that he's recovered, you want to see him do well.
Yeah.
And you want to see him prepare to get ready to play in a World Cup in the fall, because Canada's going to a World Cup. So These are all good stories.
Of course, if you don't know, Alfonso Davies had an acute case of myocarditis, which is a small inflammation of the heart, one of the heart ventricles, that would actually help, that could create arrhythmia in the heart. It could lead to very dangerous consequences, and that was due to his battle with COVID. It is one of the symptoms of COVID that can create what they call long COVID. That could be one of the symptoms of it. But we're not doctors, so take whatever we say medically with a very big grain of salt. And what do you say, Duane?
I said acute's better than the other one. So
yes, that's acute is actually the good one of the two. So severe is the bad one.
Yeah, there you go. So no, and we're all happy to see Alfonso Davies back. And what the great joy about Alfonso Davies, to finish the thought on him for the day. It's not just his skill. Like, I've only met him once, so I don't pretend to know him on any personal level whatsoever. And when I say met, I'm talking like stood in a scrum with. So that's not really meeting so much as been in the presence of. But he exudes just joy. Like, he's just you feel happy when you're around him. You feel happy when you watch him. He's just a hopeful, thankful guy that really appreciates where he's at. So even if you're not Canadian, you've got to cheer for this story a little bit, because he's a good guy. You can tell he's a good guy. Sometimes you just can. And not all athletes are. Hell, we've talked about athletes in this very podcast today that aren't particularly good people, in my opinion. So there you go.
Of course. Probably Ronaldo. But he's what we can say easily. There's a lot of things you can figure out about Ronaldo. When you Google him, I would add Andy Paulo to the list, but we didn't talk about him today. I would add him to the list. No problem there. But on that note, we hope you enjoyed our video return. Of course, thank you for your patience as we bring this new setup through its paces. Of course, we're not as used to this level, but about the 1080p HD. Hope you enjoyed all this. And of course, we'll be back very soon, Duane and I, tomorrow with a brand new edition of The World of Football with a soccer perspective. You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute, myself at Kev Laramie. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/sports podcasting network. You can find the podcast version of this show everywhere you find your favorite podcast, and if not, let us know. We will add it there. But as always, until tomorrow, for Duane Rollins, I'm Kev Laramie, and we wish you a great soccer.